In the UK, we like to think we're beer connoisseurs, mainly because we drink so much of it from a very young age.
But we don't really know that much. Over here, if someone asked if they prefer a blonde, an amber or a porter, they probably think they're being set up on a blind date.
Well, there's a beer revolution that's taking over the world, and it's coming from a very unlikely source. The USA. Welcome to San Diego, the home of surfing, sand, and craft beer.
Not so long ago, America was laughed at for its bright yellow, fizzy, watered-down light beers. But that's all been quietly changing over the last decade, thanks to what's been happening in the breweries out here. Now you can't go to a baseball game or even a donut shop without the offer of some hops.
San Diego has the most craft breweries of any region of the United States. Right now we have 140, and that number is growing all the time. It's just been incredible to see not only locals but visitors responding and wanting to come and try beer and making that part of their trip when they come out to San Diego.
So, in the interests of journalism, I've ditched the rest of the family and I'm going on my own California mission. To start, I'm meeting with a mate at Stone Brewery in northern San Diego. He's been asking me to go to breweries with him for the past decade, but I always thought he was talking about going to a boring factory. In California, it's a bit different. Yes, you can go on a tour of the factory, but the breweries here also have gourmet restaurants and awesome beer gardens you'll want to spend hours at with family and friends.
So this is Casey, he's one of my friends out in San Diego, and you've been following the beer scene over here for about a decade now. What's been going on here in the last 10 years?
Everything. We've really started to craft a lot of big beers here in San Diego. IPAs have just gone absolutely insane. A lot of high alcohol, really hoppy, really citrusy, fruity, just wonderful IPAs.
But what's changed? It's huge around the whole of America now, and Europe, and now the world.
Sure. I think Americans' taste buds have finally evolved to the point where, you know, we like decent beer. Forever, we just liked Budweiser and Coors and, quite honestly, just awful lagers. When somebody finally brought a good beer to this country, I mean, talk about opening Pandora's box. So craft brewing has sort of become the new rock and roll in this country.
Okay, so I'm out in San Diego for the next day or two. Where shall I go? Which brewery shall I go to?
There's 4 I think you should check out, and it'll really give you a wide variety of the range here in San Diego. The first one I'd say would be Ballast Point. Ballast Point shows you what a craft brewery can become. I mean, it was essentially a bunch of fishing buddies that ran a home brew company that spun it off into a brewery and sold it for $1 billion. I mean, you know, some people might call them a sellout, I call them smart. Stone is the next brewery you should go check out. Stone is sort of the anti-Ballast Point. They have refused to sell. They have said they're not for sale no matter how much money is offered, and they're going out and distributing and expanding the natural way. They're starting and they bought a brewery over in Germany. The third one I would recommend would be somebody like Mike Hess. Mike Hess Brewing, he's at that point where his beers are in every store, they're just getting ready to crest, but he hasn't really become Stone or Ballast Point yet.
They haven't got this kind of place.
They haven't had, a place like Stone. But he's on the way.
Yeah.
He's absolutely on his way. And then finally you have somebody like Protector. They're the only all-organic brewery in San Diego. And they opened a month ago. So you can really see, you know, historically, going back 10 years, you get the big boys like the Stone and the Ballast Points, but then there's room in the market for guys like the Mike Hess and even the new players that are trying to change it, like the Protectors of the world.
I think we've got a fun few days ahead of me. Let's
Absolutely.
go.
Cheers.
Right, 4 breweries to check out. First up, as we're here, the bad boys of beer. Stone was founded in 1996, and as you might expect from its gargoyle logo, has a rock star history. The 2 founders met in a recording studio in LA and have uncompromising views when it comes to beer.
Something we're known for is doing it our way. Stone, the 2 of them have always brewed exactly what they wanted to brew, despite what the public was drinking at the time. Stone Pale Ale was our first beer, and at the time that was a pretty aggressive beer. Back in 1996, not a lot of people were drinking IPAs. So that was a pretty aggressive thing to start with.
When you come here though, it's less of an industrial unit and more of an experience for beer lovers. It's even considered family friendly.
We do try to create an experience for people to come experience the beer, experience the music, experience each other. There's no TVs here in our bistros. There's a lot of families. Tasting rooms here have, games. There's, like I said, gardens here at Stone Brewing and a lot of good food.
They're now ready to take on the world and have opened up a brewery in Germany, which is why we're going to see more of Stone in the UK and Europe.
The craft beer movement in Europe is a little behind that of the US. So I think a lot of our beers are really hoppy in comparison, but also really unique and really creative.
Which beer would you recommend for a person who's never tried a Stone one before?
I gotta try them all. Stone IPA is our flagship beer. It is West Coast IPA, and it is something that we can say really started the West Coast IPA style. So we were at the start of that, and Stone IPA is one of the original West Coast IPAs. So I would definitely give that a try.
Next up, Ballast Point, whose Sculpin beer converted me to West Coast IPAs. It's really hoppy, fruity, and has a very high alcohol content. These guys are now so popular, they've been bought up for $1 billion by Constellation Brewing, who are the people behind Corona. Ballast Point have tap rooms around San Diego and have expanded to Long Beach and Virginia. Funnily enough, like Stone, Ballast Point were also founded in 1996, this time by a group of fishing buddies who owned a home brew shop.
They started, brewing in the back room and really wanting to try new things, wanting to try different hops, different yeast. Everybody loved what they were doing. Eventually they brewed Sculpin IPA, which is our flagship beer, the quintessential West Coast IPA, and the rest is history. It was something that people hadn't really had before, and it was a higher alcohol percentage, so 7%. And so once people tried Sculpin, it was, we like to say here, it was hook, line, and sinker, because people had it, and the first couple batches just sold out within an hour. People try Sculpin today and it's still that same hook, line, and sinker.
Why San Diego? Why do you think it's all happening in San Diego for craft beer?
A lot of it honestly has to do with the weather. There's never really a bad day here. It's always sunny, and it always feels like you would love to have a cold beer in your hand.
After its $1 billion takeover, Ballast Point has been criticised by craft beer purists for selling out. Some consider them too big to be craft brewers.
We're definitely big. I mean, there's no denying that now we're, larger than the craft beer definition. It's the same recipes, just scaled up. There's always going to be people that say that we're, not craft brewers, but at the end of the day, we're making beer that we love, and it seems like other people are enjoying our beers. And so we're just going to focus on that.
Next, a brewery which hopes to be where the big boys are in a few years' time. Mike Hess Brewing has 3, soon to be 4 locations in San Diego. One is the original garage where he started brewing in 2010. Back then, Hess was looking for a new office for his financial services company. He found a place in Miramar which just so happened to be zoned for a brewery. His home brew hobby grew quickly. Opening day 8 months later was so successful, the nano brewer had to close for 2 weeks to replenish stocks.
So it was so small. I mean, there was barely room at the bar. When I go to visit a customer, there was maybe room for like 10 of us some days, like the equipment they had moving around there.
Why do you think Mike's doing so well compared to other breweries?
That's a great question. I think Mike's always focused on quality. So if we're going to make a beer, we're going to use quality ingredients. I mean, even when we're doing something, we're going to make a beer with fruit in it, we're going to use the best quality we can. You always have to be innovating. And for us, one of our core brands is called Solus. And that IPA is different every single time we do it. So you're never going to get 2 Soluses together. In fact, Solus Ocassus was its full name, which means sunset in Latin. And we think every sunset's different. Every batch of Solus should be different, but they're always fun, beautiful.
What's next for Mike Hess Brewery? Are you going to be coming to the UK? Are you going to be getting as big as the other big boys?
There's a lot I can talk about, a lot I can't talk about. Expansion is definitely in the plans. We are going to be looking to expand our territory here in the US. We are looking to move more packaged beer into the UK. I don't know if we'll be getting a lot of kegs out there, but definitely our cans will be on the shelf.
So watch out for the special top-off Hess cans soon. There are now nearly 200 breweries in San Diego alone, but there's still room for more. Protector Brewery opened in 2017. It was founded by a Navy SEAL in the most Navy SEAL way possible.
It's an idea that I had when I was overseas in Iraq. Just had a problem, didn't have any beer. Can't really have beer over there. I needed a beer, so that's where it clicked in my head. How about I just make it? A bunch of friends sent ingredients out. We fermented it in just a Gatorade jug, the 5-gallon one. I wouldn't say it was the best beer I ever made, but the beer was drinkable, so that was a win for me.
And you became the most popular man on the base.
Protector is also the first completely organic brewery in San Diego, giving it a unique selling point in a crowded market.
I just know that there's two growing trends here, organic and craft beer, and I think both of them are extremely important in our society. When you choose an organic product, you know that you're contributing to sustainability in some way, because everything that we put into here, if it's an ingredient, all the barley, the grain, it's grown organically, all the hops are grown organically. We don't filter our beer. I look at it as just a little bit more raw, a little bit more pure, and I think that you come up with a superior product at the end of the day.
Time to find out for myself.
This is like the beginnings of a brewery here. You can't get any more. We're starting up and we're getting things going.
Yep.
What's the feeling when you go to Stone or when you go to Ballast Point and the other kind of breweries? Do you get that itchy feet thinking one day, soon, potentially? Do you get that? You must have.
Yeah, so we have a lot of plans here for this place. I mean, we have a 4-barrel system, meaning 4-barrel fermenters, but our plan is to get at least 10-barrel fermenters here in the next year. So we're gonna go from making about 5,000 beers a month to hopefully 15,000 beers a month here in the next year.
Talk us through a few of your beers that you've got here.
Yeah, so the one I'm drinking, that's a Russian Imperial Stout. This one, that's a Belgian Blonde Ale, and then what you have is our West Coast IPA.
Okay, how are these different to ones we might find in a different brewery? The flavours, because you're saying it doesn't get filtered as much as other places potentially.
True. So, like I said earlier, we err on the side of just more alcohol. So all of our beers, I think there's only one beer style that's like within our style guidelines. So that West Coast IPA is 8.9%. This Russian Imperial Stout is 10.5%. But we have a lot of black malt, chocolate malt. We also have a lot of coffee in this one in secondary fermentation. So it has this awesome aroma of coffee, but it doesn't have such a bite of coffee. Yeah, you smell that?
Straight away. It's
like
a cold brew kind of coffee with it, isn't it?
Yep.
Lovely.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really tasty and very strong.
Yep.
What's this one?
This one, the Belgian Blonde. So this is it's a Belgian beer. So it has that very spicy, Belgian yeast character to it. But it also has a little bit of sweetness on the back end. But you can definitely taste the 8.4% alcohol on it.
Yeah. Again, really good, clean beer, tasty.
Yep.
And it's nice to know it's organic as well. It just feels a bit fresher and a bit nicer and a bit different.
Yep.
Lovely. I'll be back.
So now you know how the West Coast has put America back on the beer map. Breweries from here are now crafting their way around the world. At my local supermarket in England, we've gone from 2 American craft beers to a whole section. Why not pick up an IPA from San Diego when you're next in the beer aisle, so you can have a taste of the Golden State in the comfort of your own home?
Or even better, book a trip out here to visit the breweries yourself and sample the craft beer where it's meant to be enjoyed, in the Californian sunshine.
Links to all the breweries we've visited are below, so you can plan your own trip. Check out more of our videos to see how you can live the life of Reilly in the USA. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing.